Welcome to this episode of Beat Teacher Burnout. I'm so glad today to have David Parkin as my guest. We've been talking about trust in leadership and trusting your team. And today we're going to be looking at all sorts of areas of what makes a school successful, what makes teachers, your team, your support staff feel respected and valued. So welcome, David. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about you?
So I'm currently head teacher at a 2-form entry primary school in Southampton. My sort of leadership journey before this has involved working as an interim head and deputy head in 2 different schools. So I've worked in 4 local authorities, and I've been very lucky to work with a range of different head teachers who I've taken a lot from along the way.
Thank you. I'm fascinated by something that you told me, which is, as an ECT, you said that even then you were given autonomy.
Yes, I think before I came into the profession, I was really interested in what the idea of a profession was. And the idea that I found most appealing was that you were trusted as a professional to do the right thing in your career. And the head teacher who was running the school where I was an ECT said to me that we were able to spend our training budgets as we wished, rather than being told or directed. We were given the opportunity to train in an area that we particularly were passionate about. I thought that was lovely, and I was particularly passionate about philosophy for children, having seen it somewhere else. So I did the philosophy for children course, and my head teacher encouraged me to then roll that out in my class. And then further on, sort of a year or 2 later, I was given the privilege of being able to roll it out further across the school because of the impact it had. And I think that at that early stage of my career, being trusted and knowing that I was a valued member of the team, even though I'd only just started, helped me to feel valued and feel motivated through those kind of hard times in your NQT year when you feel swamped with workload. It might have been something extra, but it's something I was really interested in and passionate about. And knowing that even if I'd made a mistake, that would be okay. That head teacher said to me, you don't have to be great every day. You just have to be good enough. And that stopped me worrying and stopped me trying to kill myself. And that allowed me to know it was okay to make mistakes and learn along the way.
Wow, I love what your head teacher said to you. I wish more head teachers said that to their ECTs. How did your time at school impact your being a teacher?
It always sounds a bit of a cliche when somebody says, I wanted to be a teacher since I was a child. But my journey started off at my local primary school, and I was a bit of a handful. The class teacher and the head teacher said to my mother that they didn't think that they were going to be able to carry on supporting me there because my behaviour was too challenging, and it's probably best if I found another school. And I was really lucky because the new school that my mum found for me was exactly what I needed. They were firm, they were fair, they were challenging, and they opened up opportunities that I'd never had. And I realised that at some point, probably when I was around 8 or 9, that's what I wanted to do too. I wanted to be that kind of person that could make a difference. And I don't know why kind of at that stage that's kind of what hit me, but I think I realised at that moment in time that I could achieve lots. And since then, I've wanted to be a teacher. And the only time I didn't want to be a teacher was when I was a grumpy teenager. But after going to university and realising that the world of work I was in wasn't necessarily fulfilling me, going back to do my PGCE and getting back into teaching, I haven't looked back since. And I know it's been a hard slog along the way, and there's been ups and downs, undoubtedly. But now that I was able to do that as a class teacher for those children in my class, that was lovely. But now as a head teacher, being able to support the staff in my school to do that for an even bigger number of children is brilliant. And I kind of feel like you do as a class teacher, being protective of your class and wanting the best for them. That's how I feel about the staff in my school. I feel protective of them. I want to stand up for them and get the best out of them as well.
Wow. So in a minute, we're going to sort of delve into how you get the best out of your staff, really, and how you stay well yourself. Because obviously, as a deputy head teacher, I burnt out myself, and I can't blame the school entirely. There was a little bit culturally, perhaps, that we could change, but a lot of it was my own habits. And I suppose one of the things that I saw in something you posted a while back was about how you believe in staff development and staff growth. And for me, that's the foundation of my passion to help teachers and leaders to stay in schools. It's all about that. What would you talk about in that makes a difference to your staff?
I think go back to kind of my experience of having some sort of control over what that development looks like. So coming into a school where I am now, a lot of the staff hadn't necessarily had opportunities to develop themselves either as leaders or in a particular field of interest. So getting to know each individual member of staff and having sort of one-to-ones when I came in as head teacher kind of enabled me to see where people were passionate, who wanted more leadership roles, who was interested in SEN. And I haven't necessarily developed a particular plan for each member of staff, but working with them and saying, well, there's these opportunities available, who's interested in these, and supporting people to take sort of NPQs, for example. I think we've got about 8 members of staff doing those at the moment, because they're free. They're a great way to get people to get experience. And as an aside, I think if you're in a school for a long time, it's very easy to get used to doing things one particular way. And I'm really passionate about looking outside of your school, looking outside of your local authority even, which is why I use LinkedIn to kind of keep an eye on what's going on and share the practice. But I think giving everybody an opportunity to develop themselves or experience things they've not experienced, although it always feels a little bit cheeky asking people to do more than necessarily their pay grade involves, I think that people would like the opportunity to have a wider impact and know that they're trusted to have a wider impact and to develop. So I think something we talked about briefly was we're having our pre-chat was talking about how in my school, we currently, if we're working on a new project, say, for example, a new behaviour policy, or if we're looking at our attendance, we'll work in groups. We're lucky that we're a big school, so I don't know if this would always work in a smaller school, but we'll have a member of SLT, class teacher, and support staff all working on those areas, sharing ideas. The accountability won't necessarily sit with the member of support staff, but for example, in our behaviour, very often they're the ones who deal one-to-one with those children in the restorative sense. So having somebody who's in all of those kind of different scenarios, I think, one, has a better impact on the outcomes, but two, helps everyone to realise that they're trusted and valued. And if there's not necessarily something they can be involved in at the moment, they know that somewhere along the line, if they've got something to share, it'll be listened to. And I think that's really important. I inherently trust people that they want to do well, unless something happens to break that trust. And I think it's really important that people know that from me as a head teacher and from anyone else in the SLT, that we trust them to do their best. And that's kind of where that comes from.
Wow. I think your staff are very lucky to have you. The words I'm hearing are that they feel heard, they feel listened to, they feel valued. And actually, that's what staff are telling me that is lacking for them so much. And the research shows that in order for us to be the best that we can be, for us to thrive, we need to feel appreciated, we need to feel valued, we need to feel that what we offer has worth, and that gives us more energy, more productivity, and all those different things. One of the things that is bothering me at the moment is the amount of staff absence related to stress, particularly. How is that at your school, if you don't mind me asking?
We are really lucky. Our staff absence is low. We went through a really difficult year last year, having to go through a restructure. So we have less staff this year. Even though we have less staff, we have a smaller proportion off sick, if that makes sense, because people are wanting to be at work. There's kind of a two-pronged approach that's helped that. One side of it is, I think, trusting people, developing people, supporting people. And I'll talk a bit about that later maybe, but one of the most basic things that had a really big impact, and it might sound punitive, but it wasn't meant to be punitive, was going back to the absence policy. We, as a school, had historically been trying to get the absence management done by one person in the office, which was unmanageable for that person and almost a bit impersonal, I think. So we revised how we split that up. So we had phase leaders who would look after their teams. So if somebody was absent, they'd come back and they'd have the return to work interview with their phase leader, somebody who's much closer to them and their day-to-day work and they've got a better relationship with. So they're able to have those conversations about, if you've been poorly, are you getting the support you need? Or is there a pattern to this? And being able to have those slightly trickier conversations. But also alongside that, I think it's really important that, I know with the employer, we can't make everyone better, but we purchased a health insurance policy which covers our absence, so that if members of staff are poorly, we get supply staff covered. But it also provides medical cover, physiotherapy, sort of GP services and so on for staff, and counselling. So if there are issues which are causing long-term absence, there is that support there for them, and we can signpost people to do that. So it's kind of a two-pronged approach of making sure that it's fair, because a lot of people who are poorly are genuinely poorly, and you don't want to punish them and you want to support them. But sometimes for the people who aren't poorly, and if they see the same people being poorly regularly, they can feel a little bit hard done by, or maybe that person's not a team player. And that might not be the case, but if they can see that the leadership team's doing something and they're doing the same thing for everybody and making it fair, that seems to have a positive impact, not only on the staff attendance, but also on the morale as well. And everyone feels that we're in it together and it's more fair.
Yeah, I love that. So, I know you've recently had Ofsted. How did your staff manage that?
They were brilliant. I have to say, it was, I'm going probably controversial. I've never met a bad Ofsted inspector. The only inspector I've ever come across who was not particularly friendly was a contracted person that wasn't employed directly by Ofsted. All of the Ofsted inspectors that came to our last inspection were lovely and constantly checking to make sure that we were okay and kind of feeding back during the process that things were okay and this is what's going on. It's really open and transparent. But I know that lots of our staff hadn't been through an Ofsted before, or they'd just been new to the school. So people, I think we've been in the window for a while, and people were kind of getting to the point of now, oh, come on, it needs to come. So we were resigned to the fact it was going to happen, but kept happening the week before the end of term, when we had our nativity and we had our PTA in doing Christmas shops. Although it sounds bad, it was lovely because it got to show off the school in a normal light, and actually we're a community and people are involved and we're not going to stop things just because somebody's coming in. I've forgotten to mention that, but I think that helps staff. When I said we're not cancelling things, it showed that actually it's fine. What we do is good. And I said to staff in the briefing to say, we've had the phone call, Ofsted are in. We are where we are as a school because everyone who's here plays a part. We are a good school. If we weren't, we would have known it beforehand because we'd have said it. And everyone here is the right person doing the right thing in the right place at the right time. Don't change anything you're doing. Show Ofsted what we do day to day, and that's good enough. And that's what Ofsted came in. They saw a genuine kind of 2 days of what our school looked like. And everyone said afterwards how relaxed it felt because there wasn't that pressure to put on a show or do things differently, and that they were trusted that what they do day in, day out is what they needed to show. So I actually had people saying it was the least stressed they'd felt during an inspection.
Wow, that's amazing to hear. How, as a leader, do you manage to not sometimes want to micromanage?
I've always wondered how people have the energy to micromanage. I think it's hard enough trying to keep an overview of all of the different projects that are happening in school at one time. And I wouldn't have the energy to micromanage everyone's, but also I don't have the expertise. For example, I'm not a phonics expert. So if I was to try and micromanage our phonics team, the outcomes would be awful. I'd probably be pushing them in the wrong direction. Although I find it interesting and I work alongside them and learn from them, I can't tell someone who's an expert in something I'm not an expert in how to do it better. I can ask questions, I can guide, I can coach, but it's not for me to go and tell someone who is paid and trusted to do a role how to do it. It's for them to try things the way they think are best, based on evidence, based on research, based on the school, based on the children. And if they can say to me, this is why I'm doing it, this is what we're going to do and why, great. But if we monitor it together and we realise it's not working, we can kind of look for solutions together or find out another school in the local area that can help us. But yeah, if you've asked somebody to do something, let them do it and support them to do it.
Yeah. And how important for your team? So you've talked a lot about your team, about sort of growing your team and trusting your team and respecting them. How important is communication in that for you, would you say?
I think it's really important. And bizarrely, as somebody who is very much an introvert, it's kind of I think it has had to become a strength of mine. It's something that I've had to really focus on and work on in order for it to be me not just hiding away, because that's the easy thing to do. But if there is an issue, going and openly communicating to somebody so they know that if there is an issue, I'm not going to hide it and not say anything. They'll know that we'll talk about it and we'll try and overcome it. So being clear and concise is really important. I think that, like I said, having one-to-one conversations with people is really important. So when I started, we did that. But also, we regularly have conversations with our teams. So it could be a team of teaching staff, or it could be our support staff. Kind of, we don't really know what to call them, maybe a termly forum. So last year we went through redundancies and a restructure due to falling roles. So we've got less support staff this year. And in the first half term, class teachers were really struggling because they didn't have as many support staff around, and what they had done historically wasn't necessarily going to work anymore. And the support staff who were left were trying to do what 2 or 3 other support staff were doing last year. And it was hard work. And we decided that as an SLT that we'd meet with the teaching staff and we'd meet with the support staff in an open forum, just to tell them we know things aren't easy, to hear their feedback, know that anything that was said was not going to be shot down, and giving them that open forum to kind of troubleshoot. We weren't promising that we'd change it all back and have more people, but giving them the opportunity to say how they're feeling, what was working, what wasn't working, and just saying to them, look, we know it's hard. It's not going to be perfect. we're going to make mistakes and we'll learn through this. It's a learning process, and it's okay for things not to look the same as last year. And they said, actually, that was really relieving to know that that was okay and that we weren't expecting things to be exactly the same. And it might take a whole year or longer before we really know how to do things better. But already this term, the second half of the term, and even with Ofsted coming in, by that point, people were feeling more confident in what they were doing. One, because they'd had the opportunity to know that it was okay to make mistakes, but also because we do regularly invest in supporting staff through coaching. But when we do that, we give them the time and pay it back, or they're covered internally. So we're not asking more of staff. When we're doing those things to support them, it's not adding, if that makes sense. So letting them know that they're heard, sharing good practice and supporting them throughout that process was key to kind of overcoming those kind of things. So that communication, knowing that it's never wrong to kind of share how you feel, being able to challenge SLT professionally if there is a new thing that we've tried and it's not working, and having that open back and forth and change is really important.
My goodness. I feel like we've covered so many different aspects of powerful leadership in terms of autonomy, trust, respect, allowing people to make mistakes, good communication, so many different elements. And as a result, your staff, you have lower than average absence and that sort of thing. David, if people want to be in touch with you, how would they find you?
I am on LinkedIn. It's probably the best way to get in contact these days. I'm very happy to make contact with anybody and sort of share.
Okay, I appreciate that. Well, thank you so much for sharing. I love the idea that you as a child were a challenging child at school, because I can't imagine.
I was having the same conversation with one of my children at school yesterday. So I'm hoping somewhere down the line, he'll have that light bulb moment too.
Well, thanks for sharing, and thanks everyone for listening. Thanks for listening. I hope you took something of value from today. If you want to connect, I'm at rowenahicks.com, or I have a Facebook group, which is Preventing Teacher Burnout. So I look forward to connecting to you at one of those.